Knee Channel has long had a fascination with time travelers. Numerous people have claimed to have travelled back from the future over the years, and there have been entire threads dedicated to drawing these people out and milking them of information. On July 30th, 2013, a thread titled, "Welcome to the 41st Traveller from the Future," was posted to the occult board. The number 41 didn't refer to the number of travellers who had returned, but rather marked it as the 41st thread in a long series of time traveller threads. This thread is for questions and discussions with the travellers here in the present from the future. Please treat the people from the future in this thread as the real deal. The first comment listed a series of questions posed at anyone who had travelled back from the future. These included obvious things such as their name, what time they came from, and how they were able to time travel, and deeper questions such as any upcoming disasters, advice for how people should prepare for the future, etc. Several months later, on October 9th, 2013, someone appeared to answer the thread's questionnaire. Had a real time traveller appeared? This is the bulletin board, huh? Your name, Harada, alias. What time period did you come from? 2058. How did you reach the present? A so-called time machine. It uses a Tesla coil. How did you reach this thread? I did some research before arriving in 2013. I'm writing here because I'm personally interested in the boards. Where are you staying now? Let's just say in East Japan for now. Are there any disasters that will happen within the next year? I think the portents of abnormal weather have already begun. Any technological innovations or historical events coming up? World War III, 2021. Linear movement, 2030. Time travel, 2050. Any advice for people now? Please hurry along your recycling progress. Hello everyone. It's my first time writing here, so I'm nervous. Do you believe me? Across a series of comments, a user going by the name of Harada, alias, claimed to be from the year 2058. They filled out the opening questionnaire with some interesting information and then spent some time answering questions from other users. They, of course, wanted to know more about this upcoming World War III, if the time traveller could take them back to the future, the general state of the world and politics in 50 plus years' time, and how things would change. So, we win the war, and I'm relieved that there are no more earthquakes in the Tohoku area after the last one. I still have some more questions. How long will the war last? And will anything be done with the Fukushima nuclear plant? Is there anything that we shouldn't be doing now? It lasts 3.5 years. In the Middle East, it lasts for about 1 year. The Fukushima nuclear power plant doesn't have much radiation coming out of it anymore, but it has been left abandoned and overtaken by nature. And you should prepare yourself for some sudden shifts in the climate. If Harada from the future really did travel back in time, then that would mean a 3.5-year war was coming in which Japan would emerge victorious. And while there were no more earthquakes in the Tohoku region, little would be done to recover the abandoned Fukushima nuclear power plant, and it would be left for nature to reclaim. When you say sudden climate change, do you mean global warming? That's right. Whether global warming was the cause behind it or not, there are multiple factors that led to us moving to a solar lifestyle. And according to Harada, global warming would cause the world to move to solar power. And several times he or she pointed out the need for society as a whole to ramp up its recycling efforts now. They then posted another interesting comment. I'm so glad that I can talk to people from the past. On that note, I know of someone from 2062. I haven't directly met them, but before I came here, I looked into the records of Knee Channel because I was interested. It was fun. Some things were different, but for the most part, they were very similar. Is this person a psychic or the real deal? but I didn't find any record of my own writings, which means that, by writing here, I'm probably changing the future. There are all sorts of theories when it comes to time travel and how it will affect the future. Some believe that events are fixed, and if a traveller goes back in time, then they were always meant to go back in time, and nothing will change in either the past or future. Some believe that even the slightest misstep by a time traveller can greatly affect the future, like a butterfly effect. According to Harada, he or she hadn't seen their own Ni-channel writings before leaving for the past, so, at the very least, that meant that events weren't fixed. They were potentially changing the future. After answering a few more questions, Harada left the following and final comment. I'm sorry, can I ask you all a question? Did Japan suffer from an economic decline from the late 1980s to 2013? I learnt about it when I was in junior high, but looking around, it doesn't feel that way to me. Well then, if you'll excuse me. That was the last thing Harada ever posted. Whether they stuck around for answers on their final question remains unknown. But was Harada really from the future? The comments were made in 2013, and while several of the events mentioned won't take place for decades yet, there are a few other things that we can confirm today. When posting to the thread, Harada used a trip, which is essentially the Ni-channel equivalent of a username password. This is a combination of 4 numbers, known only to the user, that displays as a random collection of characters next to their username. It's a way to distinguish yourself as the same person in an anonymous environment. In Ni-channel terms, using a trip is somewhat advanced, so at the very least, Harada was more than a little familiar with Ni-channel conventions. They also posted using sage, another code that keeps your comment from bumping the thread to the top of the boards. Yet, there was something even more telling than either of these. Harada's user ID. Users are assigned a random ID for each session they use Ni-channel. These IDs can be changed in numerous ways, such as resetting your router, restarting your computer, etc. But as long as you're in the same session and nothing changes, you will have the same ID throughout. Harada's ID throughout the thread was EHGBD7A/0. A quick search of that same ID brought up another comment in a thread about a time traveller from 2062, 4 hours before Harada's appearance. This person went by the username Future Researcher S, also used a trip code, and also added sage by their name to keep their reply from bumping the thread. Sound familiar? The comment was merely replying to a few other users in the thread, and that was it. But that wasn't the only comment Future Researcher S ever made, and a search of their username brought up more comments, with a different ID, going all the way back to an earlier 2012 version of the same time traveller thread. The username featured the exact same trip code, meaning it would be almost impossible for it to be anyone other than the same person. Here, Future Researcher S expressed surprise at apparently talking to someone from the future. 2062, no less. Something that Harada would later mention as well. It would appear that Future Researcher S and Harada were one and the same, but the future researcher forgot to reset their session when posing as Harada, thus accidentally keeping the same ID. Nobody immediately noticed this at the time, and it wasn't until later that people looked into it and realized that Harada was likely not from the future as they claimed, but someone taking the thread for a quick troll. There are also 2 somewhat related points from Harada's talk of the future that we can now confirm as untrue. Harada mentioned a supposed World War III coming in 2021. One user asked how this would affect the then upcoming 2020 Tokyo Olympics. If the Olympics take place before World War III, that probably means a lot of countries won't take part, right? there were a few countries who didn't take part, yes. As we now know, the Tokyo 2020 Olympics were postponed, so they didn't take place in 2020 to begin with. It's a little unnecessary for countries to pull out of the Olympics for an upcoming war if there aren't any Olympics to begin with. And of course, it's now 2023 and Harada claimed that World War III would take place 2 years ago. So, thanks to the natural passage of time, that has now been debunked as well. Channel is no stranger to time travelers, and it seems at least a few pop up on a yearly basis. Harada struck a chord with people, however, perhaps because they came from so far in the future and desperately warned that climate change was going to wreck us all. A good message, for sure, but perhaps not one that needed to come from the future. But what did you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.